So this is what we're making. We're taking our existing double twisted wire ring and we're blending in a double ring shank. And when we get finished, we'll have two rings. Yeah. And they should be roughly the same size. Ciao. For this part of the project, I took 2mm round wire and I passed it through the half round roller. Now you can just buy half round wire if you want, and this is 1.36 high and 2.4 wide. So it started 2, and when we went through the half round rollers it went out to 2.4. Now what I want is to make two rings out of this, solder them side by side, and then we're going to cut bits off and we're going to integrate the two rings. So make two rings exactly the same size as this, put the joins opposite each other, solder them together. So two solid rings. So make sure your rings are flat and round. Round them up on the ring mandrel using the rawhide hammer. Tidy up your joins, and if they're not quite flat on the side, what you can do is take your sandpaper, put it on your bench, sand one side until it's flat, put them together and solder them. Now on this particular project, you can line up your joins on this one and it won't make any difference. And in truth, it'll probably make it better just for this project. Hard solder. Now I just hung my rings on my third hand, made sure that they were lined up, put one fairly large piece of hard solder right here. And what I'll do is flow that. Neutral flame, like always. Warm this up until the flux dries out. Make sure your solder stays in that little groove. So I'm basically just circling, running the flame back and forth, just making sure that both rings are the same temperature. Yep. Now the solder flowed halfway around, and what I'm going to do is just reposition this. A little bit of flux on the other side. Place the solder with the flux brush. Put the torch down. And then I'll flow the solder on this side. So when the flux goes clear, make sure your solder is where you want it to be. Yep, I'm happy with that. So now I know the solder has flowed most of the way around, which we'll do for now. Quench it, pickle it, and then we'll have a look. So take the ring out of the pickle, have a look, dry it off. If it's slightly off, you can just put it on your ring mandrel and hammer it, and it'll line this up. Flip it over. Be fairly gentle, you don't Don't need to kill it. Check that it's the same size as your twisted wire. This is, yep, it's within 1/4 of a size. Now what we're going to do is cut the 2 rings and solder them together. And if I'd had an inkling I was going to do this, I would have lined up the joins on this one like I did on this one. Doesn't matter, but since you're doing this from scratch for this particular ring, line up the joins, because what we're going to do now is we're going to cut each ring in half and solder it to the other ring. So I'm going to hold this on my bench peg and cut right through the join, and I'll just visually line up the other side so that I'm cutting it in half. And you will be within half a size, I guarantee. Yep. Flip it around, cut from the other side, and like I say, visualize it. You can measure it if you want. But what you're going to have to do is file the ends anyway to make sure that they're perfectly flat. So you can line it up, have a look, and we'll just see how close we are. So 1 millimeter is one size, so I'm 1.5 sizes off. Yeah, but we have 2 pieces, and we'll probably be a little bit off on this one, and we can just mix and match and get what we want. So same thing with this one. If you can find the join, I haven't been successful. Then you'll cut right on the join. There it is. At a 45-degree angle. Flip it around, line up your saw. Now this isn't absolutely critical, because if it's slightly small, we can stretch it. See how good I am with this. I'm about the same amount off, so by mixing and matching, I'll end up with 2 perfect rings, the correct size. Yeah. So now what you need to do is file the ends of these so they match perfectly as humanly possible, because we want invisible solder joins. Yeah. So what I did was I held the ring like this, and basically my file went across both of the flats at the same time. So I was able, by doing it this way, to get a nice flat area that lines up perfectly with this nice flat area. So now I'm going to solder these. So basically you're doing both sides at the same time. Yep. So line up your rings, make sure they fit perfectly. Mix up your flux. Put a spot at each point. And we're going to just rest a piece of hard solder on the top at that spot, and we're going to solder it. Same old neutral flame. gently warm it up because we want to just dry out the flux and make sure the solder is where we want it. You can pick solder this one, and it wouldn't hurt to have a little spot of solder on your pick. So just heat the pick, get your blob of solder. Now you can see I've got the flame just going on that one join. So the flux will go clear, the solder will run. Yep. Beauty. And then I'll switch over and do this side. So once again the flame is just going on that join. Yep. So now we'll pick it, pickle it, quench it, pickle it, and have a look. So bring it out of the pickle, hallmark it on the smooth part of the band, round it up on your ring mandrel, and then we're going to blend these two together so it looks like they grew. Yeah. So this is pretty close, but still just tap it, round it up, hallmark it. Now, if you look, you can see the twisted wire part is slightly higher than the regular ring shank. So we're just going to, at the point where it touches, we're just going to blend that using our 400 grade paper and our sanding stick. So just sand it until the wire blends into the ring shank. You could file it, but I'm usually a little bit happier because we want to take off the smallest amount as possible. So we're almost there, so just a little bit more and it'll be where I want it. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm going to take my abrasive disc, or you could use your jeweler's files and put a little bit of detail in this so that it looks like it just flows from half-round ring shank to twisted wire. So we want as perfect a blend as possible, so people will ask, how did you do that? Yeah. So I'm just going to work on this just a little bit. Now these have a knife edge when you buy them, and as you use them they flatten out. Well, what you don't ever want to do is you spin this up against your file, because it will ruin your file. Yeah? So sandpaper is actually harder than this disc, so you can use your sanding stick. For that. And the inside, I use the split mandrel on the inside, which is plenty good. And then we'll polish it. So what we've done is we've made a pair of rings that are roughly the same. And in the bad old days, I would say they'd be friendship rings, but who knows what they are today. Anyway, that's it, and I'm quite happy with that.